Hi, everyone. So it's 9:33, so we'll get started. I'm very happy to see everyone here today. Just before we get started, could someone let me know in the chat that they can see my screen? Great, thank you so much. So today's our first workshop of the 2021-22 Science Fair, and it's going to be about how to get started. And we'll be giving you an overview of the various processes and I guess systems that you have to go through in order to participate in the final fair. This workshop is organized by the San Diego Science Fair Student Leadership Board or Outreach Committee. And so welcome. The Science Fair is about starting research, connecting to the scientific community in San Diego and potentially statewide or nationwide, and having fun while learning. So today we'll be covering a few different topics, such as how to get started, various important pages on the GSDSEF website, that's a mouthful, and the recommended schedule for planning your project, the pre-approval process, important components of a project, notebook content, and very importantly, the few new categories for this year's fair that you need to be very mindful of. Part one is coming up with your project idea. So first of all, before you even think about your idea, you need to actually know how to register for the fair. So I would really recommend going to the gsdsef.org website. Under the Students tab on the menu bar, you can go to How to Participate, and that provides a very good overview of kind of like a sequential timeline of what needs to be done. So for example, the first part is to decide on what kind of project you want to do, whether that's science, engineering, math, or computer science. And there are some really great links and guidelines, such as what makes a good STEM project. And some of the people in our great video committee have made videos describing more about these. And Anjana is the chair of that video committee. And then the next part has a lot of awesome links for getting project ideas, which I've used myself in the past. I found that science buddies can be very useful. Looking at past international science and engineering fair projects could also be a great idea to see what kind of projects people are doing. And the one thing to note is that you shouldn't just copy entirely your project from one of these sites like Science Buddies. I know they provide in a lot of cases, really good, well-written procedures, but you shouldn't just repeat the same exact project someone has already posted online. And the next part is to decide on what forms are required, and we'll cover that very soon. And then another thing you should be aware of is the schedule. So this is under student about and under schedule, and that is going to be updated with the finalized deadlines for everything, such as screening and initial registration. For those of you asking about mentors, I think that would be better answered by Eleanor, who is in charge of peer mentoring. So you can contact her if you have questions about that. Sorry, I have assigned everyone's slide numbers, but I can't actually see the slide numbers when I'm in the slideshow. So just a moment. Okay, so this is the final slide. Okay, and now Agostio will take it from here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So something that I found to be really helpful when I was starting my first science fair project was the student resources. I think Andrew went through a few of them, and you can see the sort of sections on this slide. There's section A for the project type that you want to go through, whether it be science, engineering, etc. Getting project ideas, how to design a unique project, which I think is really interesting. Which I think is really important because, the science fair isn't about doing an existing project. It's about doing your own thing that, you find really interesting. So they're deciding what forms are needed, resources on how to design, etc. So you can see the sections on the slide, and all of the sections have really helpful links and sites like example project, videos, thing to ask yourself, etc. And you can go to the GSDSEF website, click on students, and then resources, and that's where you can find all of these. Should be good. Yeah, so I remember when I wanted to start science fair in 7th grade that I found it really daunting because I had a ton of stuff swirling around in my head and I really didn't know just what I wanted to start with. So I think that, so what I ended up with is that actually, you know what? How many of you have watched Star Wars, like the second and the third movie? Anyone? You don't need to like raise your hand or anything, but you know, think about it in your head. All right. I'm gonna assume that everyone is saying yes because Star Wars is the best. All right. So what I really wanted to make was a hologram like the one in the movie that like Count Dooku is doing. And that's sort of where I started my science fair project. And then I've refined that idea to, you know, obviously something that like a 7th grader could accomplish. And the thing that I really want to emphasize is that your project should be doing something that you're truly interested in, right? It's your time and it's your project. So here are a few questions you can use to get started with that. So I don't know, what area of STEM are you interested in? Are you interested in computer science, engineering, etc.? What scientific questions puzzle you? Causality? What problems do you see in the world, like climate change or things like that? And it doesn't have to be like, you know, you're solving cancer every year, but you should just do something that you're really interested in for a problem that you're interested in solving. Yeah. And another really helpful resource for starting out to review is what projects do really well. So for middle schoolers, that would be the Broadcom Masters, which is the national competition. And you can qualify to that from the GSDSEF or the CSEF, which is the state fair. And for high schoolers, that would be the ISEF projects. That's the International Science and Engineering Fair. And the links you can see on this slide are the winning projects. And it's really great to see how the projects are sort of structured. So if you go to the ISEF website, there's like abstracts and the procedures that people carried out, which are really, you know, informative in that process. And also, it shouldn't really be an isolated activity. So I tried to bounce ideas off of whoever would listen. I bugged my parents. I don't know. I bugged my friends. I'm pretty sure they memorized my project title, the amount of times I said it to them. And I talked about it to a bunch of people. So try to make it a collaborative process. All right, cool. Here's the project categories. These are the sort of categories that the science fair offers. I'm actually noticing a few ones right now, but they're the categories you'd want your project to fit in. So for example, if your project involves machine learning, you might want to put it in computer science and system software. But if it involves making a robot, you might want to put it in an engineering category. So yeah.
Yeah, and actually I can jump in here and give a brief guide throughout the various categories, especially the new ones. One thing that we have this year, which is really awesome, is really detailed descriptions of each category. So to navigate there, you go under students on the website and under GSDSEF categories. I would recommend, I'm not gonna read this right now because it's so long, but you should definitely read this part carefully to help you select the category because that is a significant component of participating in the science fair. This year there's 16 categories, up from 14 before, and the two new ones are cellular and molecular biology and computational biology and bioinformatics. So on this long table below that, on the left side, you have the description and title of the category, and then you have some subcategories and their descriptions as well. And I would really, really recommend reading through all of this and figuring out what part is most applicable to your project. It can be blurry sometimes, like, oh, is my project biomedical, or is it, you know, is it molecular biology, or is it more bioinformatics? Because, you know, I did some coding a little bit in there. So you have to really read all this carefully and figure out what it aligns best with your project. And also just looking through this can help give you ideas because this is a really great overview of all these fields. So you might learn about, oh, okay, what is transcription factors or epigenetic regulation? That's pretty interesting. Maybe I'll look into that. Or, oh, wow, I never thought about biomedical sensors and imaging. So yeah, it's gsdsef.org/gsdsef categories. And again, definitely encourage reviewing that. Okay, so our next presenter will be Our next presenter will be Spencer Foss.
Okay, so all projects are welcome at the GSDEF. So like projects from science, math, and engineering, they're all eligible to participate. It's a STEM fair, so like all are welcome to join. In real life, all the different sciences, maths, and engineerings work together to solve problems. Like you can't just have medical science without like people who can make medical engineering work. So you need everyone together. So all projects are eligible to participate. So when you're choosing a project, you have to keep in mind mainly safety, and you have to know how to perform your project in a safe and controlled environment. Safety is the #1 priority. You do not want to like majorly hurt yourself in a science fair project. Also, you have to think, can you actually accomplish this project? Sometimes it might be a bit out of reach or very imaginative, but really hard to actually do. And also another thing you might need is a budget or resources, but try and keep everything low cost. Also, it's really important to actually have multiple trials and good data so you can reproduce experiments. That's something very useful, and especially a science fair. Also, I recommend this, stay away from psychology. It can be really, really hard to reproduce. I did a psychology project last year, really annoying to get all the participants. But try and keep your project doable, safety first, always make sure it's safe, and try something plausible and something that works.
Yeah, so just really quickly adding on to what Spencer has mentioned, if you want to do like behavioral social sciences research and you're really passionate about that, go ahead, but just know that it can be very, it can be a little bit more challenging since in terms of like logistics, because for every human participating, you need to have, you know, a human informed consent form. There's more details about this on the website, but there's just a significant amount of like work in the back office, so to speak, that has to be done to ensure, you know, ethical research, including review by the SRC, although most projects do go through that. And another thing is that in the social sciences, it is recommended to have like really large sample sizes. So if you just get like 10 or 20 participants, that may not be enough in the eyes of the judges to constitute like a valid experiment. You might need like 50 or even 100. But if you are interested in that field of like psychology, social sciences, by all means, do go ahead.
Actually, sorry, really quick thing about that. So I actually did a behavioral and social sciences project when I was in 8th grade. There's a few resources you can use. So I remember that I had like an online form. So there's like a Reddit you can use. And there's also, I remember using something called Amazon like Mechanical Turk, which is a way you can pay like, I don't know, 10 cents for a person to take a survey, you know, like actually take it in like an accurate way. So that might be helpful if you're looking into that.
Please send me that, because my psychology project really needed participants. It was very hard to get everyone. I only had like 20, but then I got 50, but it was okay. Anyways, updating old projects. So when updating like an old project, you have to kind of change the variables to keep going with like an original idea. And also like for engineering, you want to keep prototyping whatever you're making, like kind of add new additions. And the main thing is you just have to like, for a continuation of an old project, it should be different from the original project. It should build on it. It can't just be like the project you just did. It should add something new and relevant. Okay, so planning your project. So here's like, oh, it's doesn't seem to be loading, but a workflow for a science fair project. The screening deadline is actually like it can be much later at times. But the main thing is you want to get all your SRC approval done really, really fast. Make sure that gets through so then you can actually start working on your project. And once you've done your project early, you actually get a lot of time to work on your project screening, but don't like push it off till the end. Procrastination does not help at all.
Yeah, and notice how there's a lot of work that has to be done before even beginning experimentation, such as certification forms, unless you're a middle school student who, in a specific instance, which we will explain very soon. So yeah, and our next presenter will be Kavya.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different important deadlines for the science fair, and we recommend submitting all the forms and proposals as soon as the portal opens. Right now, all of the dates are tentative, but stay tuned at the gsdsefslb website for more changes. And these deadlines are made to be as lenient as possible and are not generally guidelines for where you should be in your project. Because, for example, we know that most students should try to start their projects as early as September so that they can submit their forms earlier and make sure that when screening comes around, they're not like rushing to finish their projects. And also, if you submit them earlier, then you can also make the lives easier of the road deckers and the screeners jobs who are all volunteers. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about what it is to apply to the fair. So there's a general process of applying to the fair and going through a project. So usually you would start off with your project idea and then have some rough experimental design planned out. And then we recommend that you make a gsdsef account and then start your safety screening and pre-approval forms and the signature page, which are all on the gsdsef.org website. And then you have to wait for the approval, the SRC approval, and then you can start your project. So there's a few different steps before you can start.
And our next presenter will be Eleanor. Eleanor, are you there?
Oh, oops. Sorry, my microphone was not on. I turned on my camera and then turned it off instead.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, sorry, there's an issue with it. It's blurry when I turn it on. But anyway, before starting your project, you should go to the website in the How to Participate section, and it'll tell you step-by-step procedures for how to participate in GSDSEF. So things like the rules, any required certification forms, and some directions for the SRC pre-approval, screening, and the application process are all there. You should also discuss your project with teachers, parents, and mentors, because the website has a lot of forms that you need to fill out depending on your project, especially if there are animals involved in it or it's a psychology project. So make sure you fill out the correct forms and give enough time to your teachers to review your project, your abstract, and sign off on approval. You don't want to be waiting at the last minute for your teacher to sign it at like the night before it's due. So just keep that in mind and the deadlines as well. So the GSDSEF account procedures are for the teacher advisors, which need to sign your forms. Some of them are digital, so they actually do need to create an account. So the teacher must establish an account at gsdsef.org in the teacher section and then register. So you can select them when you apply, and you can make your own account by clicking students and then register.
Yeah, so I can jump in on this one because it's a new slide. So in the past, everyone has had to submit the initial pre-approvals through the online through the website. But this year there is an exception. All high school students, regardless of their project, needs to complete the signature page and receive approval through the scientific review committee before starting any experimentation. Okay. And additionally, middle school projects requiring any at all certification forms also need to complete the signature page and receive the pre-approval before beginning. There is one exception. It's only for middle school students whose projects do not require certification. And what I mean by certification is usually like, oh, a certification form to work with hazardous chemicals, a certification form to work with humans, a certification form to continue a project you were working on last year. But if you're doing something that doesn't require any of those, such as, random example, like if you're testing the effect of music on plant growth, which I wouldn't recommend doing, by the way, but since it doesn't really work with chemicals or hazardous hazardous biological materials, and supposedly it's not a repeat of your last year's experiment, you wouldn't need your certification, so you can just begin working on that now. And the only thing you have to remember is in January, when it's time for the screening process, you would have to submit all your information then, but you just get to skip the pre-approval. And if you have any questions about this, this is found on the How to Participate page, so you can read all the yellow and green highlighted text carefully. Yeah.
Okay, so safety screening is something everyone has to do. Or yeah, and then
except for the middle
except
school.
for okay.
New this year, yeah.
So for most people, this is relevant. So the first thing you need to do is log in and fill out the SRC pre-approval form. And what that is just has basic info about your project plan, and all of the things that you brainstormed, so that the people who are in the SRC pre-approval committee know that you have a direction for your project.
Okay, thank you, Eleanor, so much. That was really helpful. And our next speaker is Eric.
Yeah, so this is the safety screening. So everyone except for the exceptions that Andrew mentioned has to do this. And you can download and get signatures for the pre-approval signature page through this section of links within the website. And here's a picture of what it looks like to make sure you have the right form. And some projects require additional forms. For my project last year did not, because it was purely computational, but if you look at the flowchart on the right, it lists a lot of examples of projects that do require these additional forms. And if needed, you can find those forms with links through the website on the bottom, and you need to fill those out. There are some project-specific rules, and that is if you're planning research involving live vertebrate animals, and you have to check that you're compliant with the California Education Code, the Intel ISEF, and gsdsefslb rules and regulations. And those are provided on the certification forms. And just in general, make sure you follow all of 3 of these documents before you start your project.
Yeah, it's especially important when you're working with mice or any live vertebrate animal, because judges, or I guess just review commissions in general, are extremely strict. I have known friends who did really well at the science fair, but ended up being disqualified or made ineligible because of just one little accident with a form. And so if you're doing this, I would recommend really having a very knowledgeable mentor and the ability to work in like a professional research institution, because they'll have more resources to help you complete all their certification with live vertebrate animals.
Yeah, so just in summary, by November, unless you're one of the exceptions, you have to prepare the SRC pre-approval form and attach signature page. And if needed for your project, you would have to complete the additional certification forms. And all of these should be just attached together and submitted before you start experimenting.
Yeah, and although the final deadline for the pre-approval is November or December, it's going to be December, but the date hasn't been firmly established. You should really be submitting it now, or as literally as soon as you have an idea, because if you submit it in December, that's the latest deadline, right? Then you have literally like 2.5 months to complete your research. And if you're going to be working in the lab, you're going to have to spend a lot of time, like additionally planning, obtaining materials, culturing cells, etc. So unless you want to cram your project into 2 months, you should submit it ideally now, because then you'll have like 5 months to work on your project, which is going to give you a significant advantage in producing a quality research project. Okay, thank you, Eric. And our next speaker is Anirudh.
Okay, so the safety approval. Additional note for high school applicants. So if you're in high school and you require any additional certification forms, we highly recommend completing the ISEF certifications in addition to the forms. So these are only for the higher level projects, such as the international level ones. If you need to know what kind of forms you need to participate in that, the Rules Wizard link is really helpful to do that. If you have any more questions or if you need more information, feel free to email Mr. Rodeker. His email is linked right here. So for the deadline to submit the signature page, the SRC pre-approval, and any other forms, it's actually in December, but we highly recommend doing it ASAP, because submitting the forms early, you can start your project early and you have an advantage to have a quality research project. But if you don't do this by December, you will not be eligible for the fair this year. Part 4, starting your project. So it's very important not to procrastinate. Judges can tell if your project was very rushed, or if you took your time on it, and if it's a very quality project. So it's very important not to procrastinate, because it's not helping.
And thank you. And then Badra.
Okay, so mentors are a really big, like an important part to have. So in the junior division, your mentor is going to be either your parents or your teachers. But once you get to the senior division, your mentors are going to be your teachers or university professors or grad students. And like the three institutions at the top are really great places to find professional mentors. And it's really important to not be shy about this. Understand that like an expert in the field can always give you important insights. And a really great way to start contacting these people is just start emailing people because that can always work. Someone is like bound to respond. And make sure in these emails you're referencing their scientific work so that you can explain why you're interested in conducting research under their facility. And science is a community, so mentors and peer reviews are a big part of that. And there's also a student leadership board student mentorship program, which is really cool because experienced SLB members can mentor science fair first timers, and all of the student leadership board mentors will have experience in science fair before. So it's always nice to have someone who's already been through the process of science fair. Yeah, and message Eleanor if you're interested in peer mentorship. So hypotheses and goals are also a really big, important first step in your science fair project. If you're doing a science project, you're going to want a hypothesis, but for an engineering project, you're going to have a goal because if you're building something, you want to reach a goal. And on this slide, there's a bunch of prompt questions that can help you form a hypothesis or a goal. So for example, based on facts, what do you think is going to happen? What is your solution to the problem you want to solve? Is your hypothesis viable? Like, is it testable with measurable results? How will you test your hypothesis? And this question is also good to like form a project as well, not only a hypothesis or a goal. And will you be able to conduct these tests, which is really important.
And thank you. And our next speaker is Sarah.
So the next part is a science notebook. So everybody needs a science notebook. And you can include initial ideas, data recording, and brainstorming. And judges love to see the work, not just a polished product. So you want to record everything that you've done. And you can find an example. This example is extremely helpful. I use this to help me guide last year. It can be found on the website. And make sure to take all pictures and save all your data. And also make sure to have someone review your design before actually doing it and compare and contrast. What are your controls? And also read the literature so you can find out what do others typically do or test. And if you're confused, don't worry because we will have more on this in our second workshop. So for brainstorming ideas, you could ask yourself, what are you passionate about? So for me, I'm passionate about a lot of things. So you can just kind of do research on those and decide which one you'd like to do. Have you or your family been affected by any of these illnesses or diseases? So this could be like cancer, diabetes, and etc. What is something interesting you learned in a science class? And also, if you read science news, you can get a lot of good ideas from there. So we will be having our second workshop on October 9th from 9:30 to 10:30, so about the same time as this one. So make sure to keep that in mind and check on the website. And if you have any questions about anything from certification, starting a project, or getting mentors, feel free to shoot us an email at gsdsefslb@gmail.com and to check our website. And we also have an Instagram and Facebook account, and we post updates there. And if you could help us promote, that would be awesome.
So if anyone has thank you, Sarah, and that concludes our presentation. If anyone has any questions, you can privately message to me right now and I'll answer them one by one. So I'm just going to go to the first question that was asked. Someone asked, could I please get a mentor? Yes, you can. Although we're still kind of, there may be limited amount of mentors, and so you will have to ask Eleanor about that and availability. But Eleanor is in this call right now, so you could private message her. Someone asked, can you share this presentation recording later? Yes, it'll be posted on our YouTube. Someone asked, what if you tried to register on a website but it hasn't been working? Would this be considered an exception? Well, I'm sorry for the technical difficulty, but you should email gsdsef slb@gmail.com, and also CC Steve gsdsef@gmail.com, and they can try to connect you with the right people to get that sorted out. Can you review the 6th grade division, or where can I get more information? So actually, I don't know too much about the 6th grade. I think that's been a new thing the last year or so. It should be on the website, but I can look more into that later and get back to you through email. If you signed up on the Google form, I should probably have your email. Yeah, and if anyone has any more questions, feel free to send them now. Thank you, Spencer, for sending the YouTube channel. Also, I would recommend, if you're 13 and up and you have Instagram, following us on Instagram at gsdsef, because we post a lot of reminders for workshops and important deadlines. So, you know, when you're scrolling through Instagram at 11 p.m., you might, oh, shoot, this deadline is in like an hour. I better do it. So, yeah.
And Andrew, if I might ask that you allow me to share, I wanted to show one last resource, if I could, please.
For sure. I can give you, yeah, I'll give you co-host permissions.
Okay. There we go. Okay. And I would like to now show the students that are here one last resource for finding projects. And let's see here. There it is. And I'm going to share that right now. And everybody should now be looking at our ZFairs page, in addition to the gsdsef.org, which we've been focusing on today. And thank you very much for a wonderful presentation today. We also have some possibilities for projects and project ideas. Please notice the URL up here in the corner. That is gsdsef.zfairs.com. And for project ideas, please go to that website, then to Fair, click on Fair, click on Showcase, and that will take you now to the showcase of the projects that were done this year in the GSDSEF. And you can sort by category. If you're interested, let's say, in a chemistry project, it will bring up all the chemistry projects that were done, either by, as you can see, junior, or if you scroll down further, there are some senior projects here as well. And that will give you an idea of what these are. Now, let's take a look at one, just the information which is available there. For example, here is the judging slide deck for this particular project. And you can go through and see exactly what the abstract looked like, background, and so on. Now, as has been pointed out today several times, do not do exactly the same project that you see here, but these can spark ideas. And then there's a notebook as well that can give you ideas. So this is simply another resource for you to use as you start looking at project ideas. And thank you, Andrew. I'm turning it back to you here.
Yeah, that's an awesome resource. That's the first we've ever had it because of the online fair, and
Correct.
It's kind of like a digital archive of great projects that are exactly
Yes.
what the science fair is looking for.
Yes.
In terms of like what the slide should have, procedures, etc., because they all pass screening. So thank you for sharing that. So to everyone else, thank you for attending. And if you indicated on the registration form that you're interested in the other workshops, you'll be receiving emails for those as well. It's always going to be the same Zoom link for convenience. So if you just want to save that email or save the Zoom link somewhere in your notes, that would be probably easy for you. And workshops will always be at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday mornings. So if you'd like to attend, just make sure to block out that time. And one more time, the overall process is, first, before you can do any experimentation, start building anything, start working with any cells, whatever, even start programming, okay? You need to get high school students and middle school students whose projects require certification. You must complete the pre-approval, get the signatures, fill out any necessary certification forms, and get the approval message from the review committee. And this is all done through the gsdsef.org website where you make an account. Remember, the only exception is middle school students whose project doesn't require certification. After this, receiving your approval, you can begin your project. Then in January or February, the exact date depends on your age, grade level. 6 younger students generally have to submit earlier. This is the screening process, and this is where you submit a slide deck and other information about your progress on your project, such as, oh, I've been working on growing cells, and so far I found this. Here's a picture of my work. My preliminary results are this. And then after that round of screening, if you're approved, you'll be invited to submit the registration fee and then finalize your information, and then we'll see you at the fair. So it's kind of a two-step process, and you have to be really aware of all the deadlines to make sure you don't miss out on this opportunity. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and this workshop recording will be posted on our YouTube sometime today or tomorrow. Thank you.